All right, good afternoon. This is the off-grid amateur here, creator of the Amicus Smokeless Fire Pits. For those of you that don't know, Amicus is Latin for friendly, and the reason I call them that is because they're environmentally friendly, because they repurpose 55-gallon drums to make a smokeless fire pit. It's one of the reasons we can make it affordable, so it's budget friendly, because a lot of the work has already been done in terms of making the metal round and a lot of the joints. And then, of course, there's the user-friendly aspect. Because it has a modular design, as you check out on the other videos, you'll know that it has an upper section and a lower section that makes it easy to clean, easy to carry. You know, what I have here in front of me, this is one of the pans that we make the bottom of the fire pit with. I'm going to pull this out, and this is the cutout from the top of the fire pit. It used to be the bottom of the drum, and it becomes the top of the fire pit. And then, of course, there's no legs on this one yet, but the top of the drum becomes the bottom of our fire pit. And because it's modular, it makes it really easy to clean. But the purpose of today's video is to explain about sheet metal gauge. It's a term that's used, especially for one of the more expensive brands, about how thick the metal is that they're using. I believe it's 14 gauge, unless they've changed it. And to put that into terms that you can understand, 14 gauge metal is roughly just a hair under 2 millimeters thick. If you pull out a metric ruler, you can see how thick 2 millimeters is. And the gauges that are used, that's an industry term, and people that work with sheet metal know what it means. But for those of you that don't, 10 gauge metal is thicker than 14 gauge metal, and 14 gauge metal is thicker than 20 gauge metal. And to pull up a reference chart to find exactly what it is in millimeters. But generally, the higher the number, the thinner the metal. So to put this into terms that apply to the fire pits, the more expensive competitor is using 14 gauge metal, and they offer a lifetime warranty. It's always preceded by that word limited, because there are exclusions. There's always exclusions, a lifetime warranty. Anytime it says limited, there's something that they don't want to cover forever. And one of those things is the fire bowl against burnout. And burnout is a very real possibility with fire pit, because it's exposed to extreme heat. And they offer a warranty that runs about 5 years, which is a good warranty. But it's based on the metal thickness and average conditions and things like that. Sometimes they make them out of stainless, sometimes they make them out of a structural steel. This is just regular carbon mild steel. And if you check online, you'll see that 55-gallon drums, the average for a drum is to have anywhere from 1.2 to 1.5 millimeters for the top and the bottom of the drum, and 0.9 to 1.1 millimeters for the sides where the ribbing is, and those beads, those roller rings that they have formed into the metal. But I wanted to address an issue that somebody had asked me: how long will the Amicus fire pit last? Well, the fact is I can't honestly answer that question, and I wouldn't even attempt to try to do so, to try to deceive people or mislead them. So a lot of that depends upon you. I can tell you that with an average in the industry of 1.2 to 1.5, that means that you're going to see right around 2.5 millimeters of thickness in the bottom of the pan combined between this and this, because as you know, that is combined into it and riveted in place with like a total of 11 rivets. And that combined thickness is the equivalent of right around 12 to 13 gauge, lands somewhere in there. 14 gauge is just under 2 millimeters, and this is 2.5 on average. And of course, that means that it's thicker. And you know, lamination, like plywood makes, the lamination of plywood is what gives it strength. So that lamination serves as a sacrificial top layer for burnout, that minimizes and reduces the amount of heat that hits the bottom layer of steel. So that should extend the life of the fire pit. But there's also a lot of talk about whether or not people clean their fire pit. And it's really important that you clean the ash out of your fire pit, especially before it rains. You don't want that ash to get wet. And because the ash cakes down and sits there wet, holding that water, it doesn't dry out. And because ash is what was used years ago to make lye, which was then used to make soap. And lye is caustic. It is corrosive. So once it gets wet, it's going to corrode the metal in the pan. And that's why it's really important to clean that ash out of there before it gets wet, or at the very least cover it up. So all it is doing is drawing damp. But that's one of the advantages of the Amicus, and why I named it that is because it's user-friendly, easy to clean, easy to carry. So when you remove that upper section, you end up with a pan that weighs about 10 pounds, and it's just really easy to just pick the thing up and walk it over to wherever and just dump it. Dump it out into a trash bag, trash can, just make sure the fire is completely out. And what's going to happen is you're not putting off cleaning it because you got to go get a shovel, or in some cases a special shovel that's designed to fit around things that are in the bottom of the fire pit. Because as you know, we bring in the air from the side, not from underneath, so that never clogs. It comes in at the base of the fire from the side, and so you never have to deal with it clogging. And because of the double wall design, it holds the embers into the center where that 2 layers of metal is. But you're not going to put off cleaning it because it's not a tedious project. It's not something that's difficult to do. So, that will extend the life of your fire pit. So how long will it last? Well, that depends on you. Your car will last as long as how well you take care of it. If you don't change the oil ever, it probably won't last as long as somebody who changes their oil and does regular maintenance on their vehicle. So really it comes down to how well you take care of something. But I hope this answers the question and gives you a more clarity about metal gauge, because it's an industry term that they use a lot with the fire pits, saying it's this gauge of sheet metal, and then once you get past a certain thickness, they just say what the thickness is, 1/4 inch, 3/8 and stuff like that, and then you're dealing with really heavy fire pits. Now, here's a tip that will probably for me down the road, in your best interest as the consumer. These fire pits have an inside diameter of 22.5 inches, and if you go to the store or even someplace where they cut sheet metal, and you have them cut you a nice piece of sheet metal that is, even if it's square, it doesn't really matter, it's a square piece that measures corner to corner 22 inches, and you can put it right down inside and it won't interfere with how the upper section sits on there. But if you are worried about it burning out, or it's starting to burn out down the road, I don't even know if anybody's having that problem yet, it's only been a few months, but if it's starting to burn out and you're starting to see weakness in it, you can shore that up just by going to the hardware stores, like all the other off-the-shelf items, the Weber grill grate, the wine barrel lids, the cast iron griddles that are rectangular that fit. One thing that I really love about this is the fact that there are so many off-the-shelf items that are compatible with the Amicus fire pit, making it really, really user-friendly and budget-friendly. But you get a piece of sheet metal, just have them cut it to whatever size you want, and throw it down in the bottom of there, and you've got yourself something that's going to shore that up against burnout in the future. So, little tip I probably shouldn't be sharing, because, the fact is 3, 4, 5 years down the road, a fire pit burns out, somebody orders another one. But it really, it's not about creating repeat sales and profit so much as creating a great product at a fair price, making smokeless fire affordable for more people. And that's the heart behind the entire business venture here. Not only does it create a small business for me to run and create a living, but it also makes it attainable for more people that wouldn't otherwise be willing to or are unable to spend in excess of $300 or more for a smokeless fire pit. So I hope you appreciate this video in terms of explaining sheet metal thickness and why it's important, and understanding gauge. So if you have any questions, throw them in the comments, and I will do my best to get back to you because I got more fire pits to build. So I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you so much.